Today, we will be creating a custom template for your YS essays because I found my templates have really helped me in my college application process. If you want to hear a read of my YS essay that got me into D10 school, wait until the end of this video and you can hear me read that. But because I wrote my essays on Google Docs, I can highlight my thought process so I can explain to you what is going on in the template. So if I just give you the template, it might not be as effective as telling you my whole thought process. So that is what I'm going to do in this video besides from giving you the template. First, you need to solidify what your spike is. Like for me, I'm a well-rounded student, so I have different ones, but I just picked one of them to talk about in my YS essay. You need to do the same if you are a well-rounded student. Make sure that your Common App essay topic is not the same as your YS essay topic. This is the same for any of your essays. Do not repeat your activities. Just want to note, you have a limited word space, okay? For me, for example, I use my CS project for the visually impaired and blind for my YS essay, and I use this extracurricular passion project, Study Bubbly. It's an AP thing that helps students in high school for my Common App main essay. So before I talk about some things you need to mention in your essay, let me talk about why you should mention those things first. So the two big areas are courses and activities. For writing courses, you're actually solidifying your activity list. When you list courses on your essays, that is what you're doing. Meaning that if you are choosing courses that are completely unrelated to your activity list, you're essentially admitting that you faked your interest in your activity list, worst case scenario. Now, if it's listing a course that the school is well known for as like a distilling wine course, then sure, but only list one, okay? Next up is listing labs that can solidify the idea that you're going to continue your high school research project into college, given that your project is a good idea. I mean, if it's interesting, you won't know if it is or not, so don't worry about that. The next thing is listing your aim in your YS essays. What is your aim? Your aim is what your goal is. So for example, for me, I listed my aim as getting into the Chicago's 25 under 25. It's like a rip-off brand of Forbes, whatever. But essentially what you're doing is you're laying out your path, your career path for the admission officers. That way they don't have to do the work. You already did it for them. You already say what you already say what aspirations you have. Because keep in mind, colleges are a business. They want to invest in people who they think will succeed. That way they can get more money when you become an alumni and you succeed. So mentioning your desire to win these competitions that have fame, so like Chicago 25 under 25, that are actually achievable, but still well known relatively to the area, that can help you in solidifying your passion into words. If you don't know what Chicago 25 under 25 is, just Google it, you'll have a search. Moving on to another important tip that I've heard that you should also know is that you need to balance the school's courses and the school's extracurriculars. If you just focus your whole YS essay on the courses, they don't want you. If you wanted the whole thing on extracurriculars, they don't want you either. So you need to have a balance. For me, I had it on 2/3. So 2 of the paragraphs are about the school's courses and 1 of the paragraphs is about the school's extracurriculars. So before I talk about the template, let me talk about one more thing, and that's how you can research a college on its website, since I had a lot of trouble with this when I was researching colleges, and I want to give you a few keywords that you can use to easily find these different things on the college's websites. Number 1, for courses, just Google course catalog for the school and you will find a list of all of their courses. It's very handy, and I'm pretty sure every single school has one. Number 2, if you type in your school clubs, so for me it would be Northwestern clubs, then you can also find, with a little bit of scrolling, you can find a list of all their clubs. This one's a little bit harder to find though. For labs is even more complicated because it's a little bit more hidden, but what I found was if you type in your school labs for enter subject here, for example, for me it would be Northwestern labs for computer science, then you can see a list of all the labs for that subject. This might not apply to everyone, but if it does apply to you, I recommend that you do this. There are a surprising amount of labs in different subjects that you might not know about, so I just recommend you to enter this keyword search and try to find different labs. Last but not least, for events, the only way you can do this is look through YouTube vlogs, look through the students' lives, and see which one you think is hyped up, which one you really enjoy. What do you see yourself doing? Because if you just name drop and it doesn't really make sense, you don't explain anything about it, then it kind of falls flat on its face. So we are going to get into the template for your essay, If you're applying to Northwestern, this particularly will help you because this got me into Northwestern. If you're not, this template should still help you anyways. So this template is very, very complicated. So I'm just going to list a few things that you need to include, and you should just mix and match and include that inside of the paragraph. So number 1, what is your research? Say that in about half a sentence and then explain what your projected degree program is. For example, I put BAMS, which is Bachelor of Arts, Masters in Science, degree in robotics of the CS program, something like that. Number 2, then list 2 of the courses that you find in the course catalog that matches up with your activity list. Note that your courses need to be completely listed out. So you need to list out the full course name because admission officers usually won't know the names of the courses just by looking at the abbreviation themselves. You know, you're only one applicant out of 1,000. They're not going to search the course up just because it's you. And then after you list the 2 courses, this is a very important step. You need to explain how it lines up with that particular activity on your activity list. Some simple explanation can do this can increase my experiences in this particular field. It's something simple, but you have to do it. One thing I did forget to mention was that this 2 courses cannot be related with your research project. So it needs to be a separate activity of your activity list. Why? Because the 3rd point that you need to include your essay is you need to talk about the experiences gained in those courses and how they can affect your research. The reason why point 2 and point 3 are different is because point 2, you're only talking about how that course will help you in that particular activity. However, for point number 3, what you're doing is you're talking about how the experience in those 2 courses can help your research project. So your research project and that 2 courses activity is actually different. The other thing that this does is that it sneakily drops in the fact that you're going to continue your research project in college, which is always good. Colleges love to see continuation. And that leads us to the 4th and last point of this first paragraph, and that is you need to name drop a lab that relates to your research if possible. Now note again, this is only 1/3 of your total paragraph, so around 100 words. You need to include everything that I've just said. If possible, a little bit more, but it's fine. What I've said is good enough. One thing that I also did that I just thought of now was that I made sure to not include too many courses, because if you're just name dropping courses, there's no point in that. And if you're not explaining how it helps your particular activity, whichever one that you choose, there's no point in just name dropping 10 different courses inside of the course catalog. Second paragraph, you need to talk about another activity that you're interested in. Note, this is the 3rd activity that you're going to mention here. And you need to talk about how this activity relates to your research, but in another direction. For example, what I mean is, for me, I made inventions for the visually impaired and blind, but then I thought, oh, what if I went the business route? What if I talked about how I can market my product and release it to those visually impaired people and actually give them the device instead of just being research? And so then I started talking about entrepreneurship and some of the courses, which we will get to later. Number 2, you need to talk about a big achievable goal. For example, this is what I said before inside of the explanation of the thought process, the Chicago 25 under 25. This is where I mentioned that. 3rd point, you need to talk about how you can achieve that goal. You need to tell the admission officer step by step what are your plans for achieving that goal. For example, you can say you want to have a minor in it. Name drop a few other courses. Again, you need to mention how those courses tie into your activity. That is very important. Just want to stress that. Can't stress that enough. And number 4, you can mention school competitions that can act as stepping stones for you to achieve that big achievable goal that you have in point number 2. Great. So now you've talked about what you will do when you get on campus. What are your plans when you get onto campus? Those are 2 different things. And then the 3rd one is now talking about extracurriculars. So here's the paragraph where you have to go onto YouTube and watch vlogs. Please watch my vlogs. I'm just saying, I need more viewers. And so what you're doing is you're looking through those vlogs and you're finding specific events that they're name dropping, because if they name drop events, you can use that, you can include that in your essays to make you feel like an insider inside of the school. For example, at my school, it would be the dance marathon. And for your school, it might be something else. Just look at vlogs. That is the fastest way, in my opinion. Of course, you can go onto the college's websites themselves and find like events at the school, but you won't know which one's good and you can't really talk about it as if you know what the experience is like. So the best way for you to do this is to watch vlogs. Point number 2, the trick is to find extracurriculars that still resonates with your creativity, your empathy, any aspect of you, any values that you have. make sure that these events that you want to attend reflect those values. So for example, the dance marathon helps charities. The other thing that I included was I wanted to go to this local museum of science and industry. That shows my curiosity. That shows my Schrodinger catness. That doesn't make me a cat boy, does it? And essentially, you can show a side of you that you want to emphasize. Moving on to the last point. Here, I talked about like research funds and how that can help me with my research, but I personally would have put this in paragraph 1 or 2 now looking back at it, but I'm just reading off what got me into Northwestern, so this is what I did. I'm just spoon feeding it straight to you with no filter. And we are done. That was such a long ride. I'm so glad you stuck until the end. And now you might be wondering, why aren't you reading the essay? And that's because since this video is so long, I will be doing that in a different video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down if you like this type of content, and I will see you in the next video. Don't subscribe. Bye.